Business etiquette is a subject that is very important for any person who is working or wants to work in an office environment. Business etiquette stands on the foundation of three letters: A, B and C. Yes, but these A, B and C are the ABCs of image. So what are these letters? What do they stand for? A stands for appearance, B stands for behavior and C stands for communication. Appearance is the way you dress, your grooming, at work or in any place related to work or business. So if you are working, you need to dress professionally, groom yourself professionally. The second letter B stands for behavior. Behavior is how you behave in the workplace with your colleagues, with your peers, with your seniors, with your juniors, as well as with your external stakeholders like your customers. And C stands for communication. How are you communicating with both people inside your office as well as outside your office when you are at work, when you are doing your business? These are the three letters which are important to remember, because these ABCs of image, as we call them, are the foundation to business etiquette. Now that we have understood the foundation of business etiquette, which were the ABCs of image, let us now delve into what are the different aspects of business etiquette. And let us start off with the first aspect, which is your body language and your expressions. The first important part is how you stand, your posture. So are you standing tall or are you not standing tall? When you are leaning to your left or right, front or back, then you are not standing tall. If you are shifting your weight between your left leg and the right leg, then you are not standing tall. Standing tall means you are standing straight and your weight, your body weight is equally balanced on both legs. This is one posture that portrays confidence and professionalism. The second part about body language is how you walk. So when you are in office or when you are at the customer's office, how are you walking? Are you walking slowly? Are you walking briskly? I always recommend that you walk a little fast, brisk, not too fast, but fast enough, not too slow. The second point is also you need to walk upright. Upright means that your body should be straight. There are a lot of people when they walk, they stoop their shoulders, they are not straight with their body, and that doesn't look good. So when you're walking briskly and your body is upright when you're walking, you are again portraying confidence and professionalism. The third part of body language is about expressions. So are you expressing confidence as well as expressing the emotions that you have? By emotions, I don't mean that you will become emotional, but if you are, for example, wanting to display frustration, you have that little bit of frustration on your face. If you want to show excitement, there's a little bit of excitement on your face. These are light expressions, not a lot of expressions, but expressions are important. Most importantly, are you expressing confidence through your voice? And the final aspect, which is part of your expression, is a simple word called smile. I always suggest that you need to smile when you're saying something important, and also smile when you're greeting people and when you're communicating with people, when you're saying something positive or happy, smile. Smile is one of the most important facial expressions that communicates something positive and optimistic and happy. So please go ahead and ensure that your body language, which consists of your posture, your movement and walking, and your expressions, including the smile, that these things are perfect. The next aspect of business etiquette is meeting and greeting. Have you ever faced a situation where you are walking with your friend and suddenly your friend meets her friend and then they start talking to each other and you stand there like an audience? Your friend is not introducing you to her friend. How embarrassing it might feel, isn't it? What if you are the person who is walking with a friend and you meet your friend or colleague and you don't introduce them to each other? It's not right, isn't it? So it's important, first of all, as part of etiquette, to introduce those two people to each other. Hello Ram, this is Sham. Sham, this is Ram. You just need to do a very basic, simple introduction. You don't need to worry about anything else. That's the basic etiquette, fundamental thing to do. Always remember to do that. And when you do that, you will also probably shake hands. So when you're meeting someone, you end up shaking hands. So the right handshake is important. A limp handshake is a handshake where your hands are absolutely limp, which means you're not even trying to hold the other person's hand. On the other hand, a hard handshake, strong handshake means you're holding the other person's hand too tightly and it might hurt the other person. So what we say is we should use a firm handshake, and it should be a very short handshake, about a second or 2 seconds, and that's it, not more than that. Don't keep shaking the other person's hand forever. And to be able to do these things right, you have to remember 2 points. One, keep your right hand free so that you can shake hands. You shouldn't be holding anything in your right hand. That's what's important. Keep your right hand free. And the second point is, when you are meeting and greeting a person, you are shaking hands, maintain eye contact with that person. Very important rule to follow. And finally, be punctual. Whenever you're meeting someone or greeting someone, whether you're introducing one person to the other or you're going into a meeting or meeting someone and greeting someone, you must ensure that you are punctual, you are on time. The next aspect about business etiquette is the exchange of business cards. How do you exchange business cards? Let me just tell you, the basic part here is do not forget to carry your cards and do not run out of cards. Ensure that you have enough cards with you all the time. If you're running out of cards, get it printed on time. Now, once you're there and you're ready to exchange cards, the first thing to do is to ask for that other person's card. Once you've received the card from that other person, then you present your card. And when you're presenting your card, present it face up, which means when the person receives your card, that person should be able to read your card immediately. Once you've received the card and you've given your card, the exchange of card has taken place, then you take that person's card and read it. Give it some time, spend some time on that card. It's a mark of respect to the other person. Another point that you must remember is that if somebody gives you his or her card, never turn down the card. For example, you might have received that person's card earlier, maybe a few days back or a few months back, but if the person is again offering you his or her card, please accept it and do not turn it down. So these are the rules about the exchange of business cards. An important aspect of business etiquette is small talk. When we meet a customer or maybe even an internal stakeholder like a colleague, a junior or a senior, we first start off the conversation with a small talk. However, small talk topics are essential to understand. There are certain topics on which we cannot talk and there are certain topics which are safe. Let me tell you about the safe topics first. So the safe topics are sports. You can talk about any kind of sports, any non-controversial book or movie. I say non-controversial because in a small talk situation, we don't want to get into any kind of controversial arguments. We can also talk about art, we can talk about travel, we can talk about weather. For example, if you have traveled from one place to another to meet a person, you can always talk about your travel, or if the other person has traveled, you can ask about that person's travel. Similarly, you can talk about weather as well. So these are more or less the safe topics. What about the unsafe topics? Topics on which you should ideally not speak on. So let me tell you about the unsafe topics. You just need to remember that anything which is too personal is absolutely unsafe. When I talked about non-controversial books or non-controversial movies, the moment you talk about any controversial subject, it becomes unsafe. So that's the first part. Now, when we talk about the personal aspects, for example, family, children, marital status, religion, or views on politics, these are personal things. These have nothing to do with work. And therefore, these are topics we need to avoid. So now you know what are the safe topics and what are the unsafe topics. Let me just add a couple of more points to the unsafe topics part. One, never do complaining about your work, your boss, your company in front of any person who is outside your closed group. And second, never ask anyone's salary or discuss your salary or discuss anyone's salary. So these are also unsafe topics, whether in small talk or otherwise. I thought, let me just add this because as part of etiquette, these are certain things we tend to avoid, topics that we tend to avoid. As part of the learning on business etiquette, we also need to learn email etiquette. Now, emailing itself is a pretty large topic, but as part of business etiquette, there are certain fundamental things that we need to keep in mind. The most important one to start off with is that when you write an email, please ensure that you write it briefly, which means the email body should not look like an essay. The email body should be brief and to the point. If you are sending more information or you need to send information which goes into multiple pages, then you can always type it in a Word file and attach it with the email. Also, before clicking on send, please go through the email, check the language if everything's okay, if you've written exactly what you mean to say, and also check if the attachments are in place before you click send. One more important thing to check would be the email addresses that you are sending the email to. Sometimes what happens is there could be two people with the same name in your organization and their emails could be a little different. So once you know who you're sending it to, you will end up sending it to the correct person. But if you don't check it, sometimes we might end up sending it to the wrong person. So that is something that we need to check before we send the email. Now, there are other rules. If you receive an email, you need to reply to that email within 24 hours. Again, that's a basic rule that we need to follow. We should not send forwarded emails, junk emails. So we tend to receive these emails from different sources, but it's best to stop it there. We should not send forwards to other email IDs within the organization. And one final point, there are times when we reply to an email that was sent to us, we click on reply to all. Ask yourself whether when you're replying, it needs to be replied to all or you need to simply reply to a certain number of people. So it's best to stop using reply to all when it is not required. Should we do it or shouldn't we do it? That's a question that you need to ask yourself and accordingly decide whether you want to click reply or you want to click reply to all. So these are the basics of email etiquette. Telephone etiquette is an important constituent of business etiquette. There are two aspects to telephone etiquette. One is when you call and the other is when you receive a call. So let me first talk about when you call, what do you do? So whenever you're calling somebody, the first thing that you need to ask once that person picks up your call is this question: is it a good time to talk? Why it's important is because you might be calling this person and this person might be busy in some work or might be in a meeting. If you simply ask this question, that person can immediately say yes or no. If that person says yes, you can continue with your conversation, but if that person says no, you need to stop. You need to simply say, okay, I'll call you back. Would you suggest when I can call you back? If that person says, okay, maybe after an hour or I will call you back, you say, all right, no problems, thank you so much, and disconnect the call. And when you call someone who is unknown, or if you're calling someone from your landline, telephone and not your mobile phone, the other person might not recognize who is calling. So it's best to call, and when that person picks up the call, you state your name at least. If that you know that person knows you, so you simply state your name. If you know that that person may not know who you are, then state your name, state the department's name as well as the company's name. It depends on who you are calling and what the purpose of the call is. If the person is an external stakeholder, you have to say your name, department as well as your company's name and the purpose of your call. On the other hand, if it's an internal stakeholder, you can simply name yourself and the department's name and then state the purpose of your call. Now let's look at when you get the call. So answer the call promptly, as quickly as possible, so that the other person is not kept waiting. So what we generally say is, if we are in our cubicle and the phone rings, we answer the call within the first 3 rings, if possible within the first 2 rings. So this is the first part about answering calls. Second is, whenever you're answering calls, say hello and state your name, so that the other person can know whether that person is called the right person or not, if you are the right person or not. So that's another courtesy that you can always do for the person who has called you. And if you get to know that you have missed a call, it could be that some colleague told you that you had missed a call, or in your mobile phone if you see that you had missed a call, please call back. It's again good etiquette and courtesy to call back the person who has called you. Of course, you will not call back a spam number, but you will call back someone who genuinely called you and had something to talk to you about. Other than these points, there are some common things that we must remember. One is, if we are attending a conference call, it's best to take the call from a conference room. If you're using a speakerphone especially, and if you're not using a speakerphone, then you can use your headset to take a call. If you are in a conference call, it means that there are multiple people speaking and you are not the only person speaking. Therefore, it's best to keep the phone on mute. Unmute only when you are speaking. So these are the fundamentals of telephone etiquette. An extension of the telephone etiquette is mobile phone etiquette. I'll just tell you a few simple rules. Number 1, use a quiet voice to talk. Don't speak loudly or shout. Sometimes we are unable to hear the other person, but it doesn't mean that the other person can't hear you. So when you speak too loudly, everybody around you might get disturbed, especially if you are in your office. The next rule is that you need to keep your phone in the silent mode or vibration mode. Other than that, you can keep a ringtone. Keep a simple ringtone and let the ringtone volume be very low, so that you are the only person who hears it and others don't get disturbed. And I'm sure you would agree that it is best not to leave your mobile phone in your cubicle at your desk. The reason is not because your phone might get stolen, well, that is a possibility, who knows, but primarily because if you leave your phone at your desk or in your cubicle, and if it starts ringing or vibrating, people around you would get disturbed. One final point about mobile phone etiquette is, where and when can you use it? It is best to avoid using mobile phones in places like restaurants, because you go and eat there, so we say don't use mobile phones there, or in religious places where people go to pray, or in, of course, movie theaters. You would never want a telephone ringing suddenly when you're watching a movie in a cinema. And one more thing, for your own safety, do not use mobile phones while you are driving. Cubicle etiquette is also part of business etiquette. I remember one funny incident once. I was in my cubicle, and I picked up my phone and I was talking to someone over the phone. It was a work-related call, and somebody came near my cubicle and started waving his hand, and he was trying to say something, and I was distracted because I was busy with my call, and then I couldn't understand what this person was trying to tell me with sign language. And that day I realized that one of the things related to cubicle etiquette is that if somebody is doing some work or busy in a call, please do not use even sign language to distract or disturb that person. It's part of this etiquette. Another thing is, while I am in a cubicle, should I speak loudly? Answer is no. whether I'm speaking over the phone, whether I'm speaking to someone else, I should not be loud. My voice has to be soft so that others around me do not get disturbed. In fact, I shouldn't even discuss anything confidential in a cubicle setting. Confidential means that people around me, even if they're my colleagues, may not need to know about it, or rather should not know about it, and therefore that's another point that I need to keep in mind. I'd already mentioned in the telephone etiquette part, I want to repeat it once more in the cubicle etiquette part, the fact that speakerphones and cubicles don't match. That means whenever you want to use speakerphones, it's best to use it in a conference room. And of course, needless to say really that you shouldn't be making any personal telephone calls from your cubicle. And remember that your cubicle is your reflection. If you keep your cubicle neat and clean and organized, people would then consider you to be an organized person. Otherwise, if you keep it dirty, messy, that's how people would perceive you. And these people are your internal stakeholders, your colleagues, your peers, your seniors, your juniors. So remember that you are making an impression directly or indirectly in the minds of people who are working with you and who are around you. So keep your cubicle not messy but neat, and also follow the cubicle etiquette. Meeting etiquette is another subject that you need to understand and keep in mind. Whenever you are going for meetings, please be punctual. There are a lot of internal meetings that take place and nobody likes to be kept waiting. Would you like to be kept waiting? The answer is no, right? Of course, I need to carry my notebook and pen or my laptop wherever I want to take notes, and it's best to stay on schedule, start the meeting on time and end the meeting on time. Both are very important. Sometimes meetings do extend, but keep it as limited as possible. That's how you will also create a good impression and good image about yourself, as well as you will follow the etiquette that we need to follow. Dining etiquette is an important aspect of business etiquette. Now, it is a pretty elaborate subject, so I cannot delve deep into it, but I will definitely give you the pointers required, which will be the basic ones that you need to follow in any such situation. Whether you're going for lunch or dinner with your colleagues or with your customers, in any work-related scenario, whenever you're going for lunch or dinner, you need to follow the dining etiquette. So let us go through the basic rules. First of all, you stand on the right side of the chair before you sit down. The napkins that are given to you should be kept on the lap. Food should always be passed towards the right. Now, these are rules that we need to follow. However, at times it may be seen that people are passing food to the left or right depending on convenience. When you are in a work-related lunch or dinner, it is best to select something really quick from the menu. Don't spend too much time trying to think what you will eat or what you will not eat. It is best to order something which is easy to eat, simple and not messy. You can eat it easily. I prefer to order any food that I can eat with a fork and knife or a spoon and fork, so that I do not become very messy while eating. Also, as part of the etiquette, we order medium priced food. We do not order food which is priced very high, and we do not order alcohol until and unless that's what that dinner or lunch is about. If everybody is ordering, then you can. Otherwise, it's best not to do that. And of course, we cannot share food in such a situation. Even a dessert, no sharing allowed. Also, when the food is served, wait till everyone has been served, then you can start eating. And eat your food slowly, don't eat too fast. Cut small pieces at a time and eat. Whether it be meat, whether it be vegetables, whether it be any food, just take your time, eat a small portion at a time. Don't hurry into the food. That's what is very important. And you also need to know which silverware to use. For example, if you're using a fork and a knife, then you hold the knife with your right hand and the fork with your left hand. If you're eating with a fork and a spoon, then the fork goes onto your left hand and the spoon goes to your right hand. So if you want to learn more about dining etiquette, you can always watch videos on YouTube, or you can go through certain websites, or you can even take a course if you really are interested. And some final rules, a few more rules for you as far as dining etiquette is concerned. When we are eating, we should not put our elbows on the table. It's important not to do that. Don't put salt or pepper on the food before tasting the food. It's like disrespecting the chef or the people who made the food for you. Never talk with your mouth full. If you have food in your mouth, it's best not to talk. First swallow the food, then talk. Another thing that can happen is if you take too much food in your mouth, now you can't gulp it down, so you drink something. This is something you should avoid. First swallow the food, then drink water or any other drink that you have. And we should never gesture with the silverware, I mean the spoon or the fork. Don't gesture, don't talk with gestures while you have the spoon and fork in your hands. And I've already told earlier during the mobile phone etiquette part that you should not receive or make calls during dinner or lunch. And of course, never try to arrange your hair or apply makeup or even pick your teeth while you are on the dinner table. We use elevators very often, don't we? But have you heard of elevator etiquette? Again, part of business etiquette if you're using elevators at work. Of course, the etiquette that I will tell you about right now is applicable in any case, anywhere, whether it's your office, whether it's a shopping mall, whether it's somewhere else. If you're using an elevator, these etiquette apply. First of all, I should not try to board an overcrowded elevator or an elevator already crowded with a lot of people. I should not push myself inside. And of course, if somebody is trying to come into the elevator and you are inside the elevator, hold the door for that person. Holding the door doesn't mean I put my hand out. That's what a lot of people do. They just put their hand out and try to stop the door because the sensors in the door will make the doors open. I don't want to try that. I don't want to risk my hand. What if the sensor doesn't work, right? So there are certain buttons inside the elevator which we can use. So there's a button which we can press to open, and there's a button which we can press to close the door. So if somebody is arriving into the elevator, you hold the door by pressing the button which opens the door. Also, when you are inside the elevator, it's best not to talk. If you know someone who gets into the elevator, just give a smile, a nod, more like a little greeting there, but nothing more than that. And if you just need to move one floor up and down, if you really don't need the elevator, just take the stairs. Good for your health, little bit of an exercise, but most importantly, why would you need an elevator for just one floor? Until unless you have any kind of difficulty walking up and down the stairs, of course. I have seen many times people throw trash inside the elevator without really realizing it. For example, somebody has a toffee and throws the wrapper inside the elevator, or somebody has maybe something from a small packet and they throw the packet inside the elevator. These are things that we should avoid doing. Also, drinking or eating inside the elevator is not correct. So if you're carrying food or carrying drink with you covered and you're carrying it, it's fine. But eating and drinking inside the elevator is not correct. As well as smoking. Of course, I haven't seen anybody smoking inside an elevator, but just in case, I thought I'll mention that. And by the way, a word of advice, wear a deodorant when you're getting into the elevator. Well, I don't mean that you wear a deodorant, put deodorant before you enter the elevator. But you see, in the summer season, especially in a country like India, there's a lot of sweating that happens in the body. So if you use some perfume or a deo, you smell better. Otherwise, with all that sweaty smell, you get inside the elevator. It's not really good for the other people in the elevator. Anyway, the fun part aside, these are basic rules which you need to follow when you use the elevator, and these are called the elevator etiquette. And finally, I've come to the part called washroom etiquette. There are a lot of people who are not aware of the washroom etiquette. For example, I do see many people, they throw their chewing gum in the basin or the toilet. Should not be done. The best way to discard a chewing gum is to put the chewing gum inside a paper tissue and throw it in the dustbin so that it doesn't stick anywhere. We should also always flush after using the toilet. Ensure that the toilet seat is clean and dry, and close the lid before you leave the toilet, before you leave the washroom. Also, when you are using the wash basin, do not take too long. Also, do not use the mirror for too long, because there are other people who might need to use the mirror or the wash basin. You might have also noticed that certain people are there who take calls or make calls. So they are talking over the telephone while in the washroom. Best to avoid. Also, do not converse with other people in the washroom. Come out of the washroom and then talk. Again, these are basic etiquette. Most importantly, maintain cleanliness and be hygienic in your approach. That is what washroom etiquette is all about. And before I finish, let me tell you about some basic courtesies. Always say welcome when somebody says thank you. Another basic courtesy is, if you have entered through a door and you see somebody else right behind you, hold the door for that person till that person arrives at the door and holds it himself or herself. If somebody else is holding the door for you, say thank you to that person. It's also good courtesy to speak in a common language when you are amongst a group of people. If, of course, somebody doesn't understand your language, then you might need an interpreter. However, in office, we always suggest that we talk in a common language which everyone in that group understands. So, if everyone understands English, speak in English. If everyone understands Hindi, then speak in Hindi. It depends on which language is the common language. And there are 6 phrases that I want to tell you about. The first phrase is thank you. The second phrase is please. The third phrase is excuse me. The fourth phrase is after you. The fifth phrase is I'm sorry. And the sixth phrase is let me help you with that. Now you can understand how important these phrases are. These are all part of basic courtesy. Depending on the situation, use these words and you will find that you will be able to have a good relationship with your colleagues as well. I hope I've been able to cover the most important aspects as well as the fundamental aspects of business etiquette. If you can follow these rules, these etiquette, you will be able to create a very good impression amongst others, and people will see you as a good professional who follows etiquette and is well behaved, well mannered, and speaks politely, communicates well, and that is the image that you want to portray. All the best to you in applying all these learnings from this business etiquette session. Thank you.